Every morning in the village Pipliapur was very peaceful. Water was poured in the tulsi plant in front of every house. Milk was boiled. The mooing of cows and the tinkling laughter of children made the atmosphere joyful. An old grandmother lived in this village, whose name was Sudeshi Devi. Everyone lovingly called her grandmother. Grandmother's life was simple and plain. She would wake up early in the morning, walk in her garden, worship God, and then tell stories to her grandchildren. She had a favorite crow, whom she called Kalu. The story of friendship between Kalu and grandmother was very old. Kalu always hovered around grandmother. Sometimes he would sit on her window. Sometimes he would hop in the courtyard. Grandmother also fed her grains and talked to him. Kalu listened to her talks carefully and sometimes answered with his coin. Kalu was also born in this village. He was a small chick when his mother died. Grandmother saw Kalu alone and helpless near her house. She picked him up and brought him home. Grandmother raised him like her grandson. She arranged for small grains and water for him. Slowly Kalu grew up and learned to fly. But he never left grandmother's side. Kalu would fly around the village all day, but every evening he would come back to grandmother's house. The villagers would also laugh at the unique friendship and say, "Grandmother and her Kalu are true friends." One day, when grandmother was sitting with Kalu, she started telling the story of her childhood. "Kalu, do you know, when I was small, I also had a cute crow. His name was also Kalu." Kalu shook his head, as if saying, "Yes, grandmother, tell me everything." Grandmother told Kalu that when she was young, her parents died early. She had become very lonely. Then one day, she found a little crow in an injured state. She took care of it and healed it. The crow became her true companion. Grandmother said that Kalu helped me a lot. He understood everything I said and never let me feel lonely. When I grew up, that crow also grew old and died one day. I was very sad, but I kept his memories in my heart. Kalu saw tears in grandmother's eyes and distracted her with his cawing. Grandma laughed and said, "Oh, you are just like my old Kalu. You never leave me alone." Time passed and the grandmother grew old. One day, she fell ill. Her body had become weak now and she could not move much. The villagers noticed that Kalu was also sad without grandmother. He would sit near her and serve her. Sometimes he would fan her with his wings, and sometimes he would sit near her and try to share her pain. Grandmother's illness made the villagers worried too. Everyone started coming to her house and serving her. But Kalu's service was the most precious. Grandmother's condition was getting worse day by day. One day, she called her grandchildren and said, "Children, I will not be able to live much longer, but my Kalu will always be with you. Take care of him." That night, grandmother said to Kalu, "Kalu, take care of these children after I am gone. They will need you." On hearing grandmother's words, Kalu filled his eyes with tears and answered her with his cawing. The next day, grandmother departed from this world. After grandmother's death, Kalu took care of her grandchildren. He would always be with them, making them feel safe. The people of the village still remember this unique story and say, the friendship between grandmother and Kalu was priceless. Kalu would still play with the village children and tell them the grandmother's stories. This story teaches us that true friendship and love can be in any form, be it human or bird. The unique story of Grandma and Kalu will always remain alive in our hearts.
If you like this story, then subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories.